The morning sun cast long shadows across the hospital corridors as William walked slowly toward the private wing. His footsteps echoed against the polished floors, each step heavier than the last. The Royal Protection officers followed at a respectful distance, their faces grave with understanding. Today was different from all the other days he had made this journey. Kate had been fighting her illness for 18 months now. What started as fatigue and headaches had gradually revealed itself to be something far more serious. The doctors had been cautiously optimistic at first, speaking of treatments and recovery timelines. But as the weeks turned to months, their tone had shifted. The smiles became forced, the medical updates more carefully worded. William pushed open the door to Kate's room and felt his heart skip a beat, as it did every time he saw her. She was sitting by the window, wrapped in a soft blue blanket that matched her eyes. The morning light illuminated her face, and despite everything, she still took his breath away. Her hair, though thinner now from treatments, caught the sunlight like spun gold. "You're early today," Kate said, turning to greet him with that same warm smile that had captured his heart all those years ago at university. Her voice was softer now, but the love in it remained as strong as ever. William crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. They felt so delicate, like bird bones wrapped in silk. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. "I kept thinking about our first date. Do you remember? You were so nervous you spilled coffee on your white blouse." Kate laughed, a sound that still made William's world brighter. "And you were so worried about impressing me that you forgot to bring money for the bill. We had to call your friend to come rescue us." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the world wake up outside the window. A groundskeeper was tending to the hospital gardens, carefully pruning the rose bushes. A young couple walked past, holding hands and laughing about something only they could understand. Life continued its endless dance, oblivious to the private drama unfolding in room 247. The past months had been a whirlwind of medical appointments, experimental treatments, and carefully managed public appearances. The media knew Kate was unwell, but they had been given minimal details. William had worked tirelessly to protect their privacy, while still fulfilling his royal duties. Every public engagement felt like a performance, forcing smiles when his heart was breaking. "The children called last night," Kate said, breaking the silence. "Charlotte made me a drawing of our family. She drew us all with enormous smiles and bright purple hair." She chuckled softly. "George insisted on reading me his entire history essay about medieval knights. And Louis just wanted to know when Mummy was coming home." William's throat tightened. The children had been staying with his father at Highgrove, carefully shielded from the full gravity of their mother's condition. They knew Mummy was sick and needed special treatment, but they didn't understand that she might never come home again. "What did you tell them?" William asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "I told them that Mummy loves them more than all the stars in the sky, and that love never goes away, even when people have to go on different journeys." Kate's voice remained steady, but William saw the tears she was fighting back. A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. It was Sarah, Kate's favorite among the medical staff. Sarah had been caring for Kate since the beginning, and over the months she had become more friend than caregiver. "Good morning, Your Royal Highnesses," Sarah said gently. "I hate to interrupt, but Dr. Patterson would like to speak with you both when you're ready." William and Kate exchanged a look. They both knew what this conversation would likely entail. The experimental treatment had been their last hope, and the results had not been what they'd prayed for. "Give us a few more minutes," William requested, and Sarah nodded before quietly withdrawing. Kate reached up and touched William's cheek. "Whatever he tells us, I want you to remember something. These have been the most beautiful years of my life, not because of the palaces or the titles or the public attention, because I got to love you, and be loved by you, and create 3 incredible little humans who will carry the best parts of both of us into the future." William leaned into her touch, closing his eyes. "I can't imagine a world without you in it." "You won't have to imagine it," Kate said firmly, "because I'll always be with you, in every sunset that reminds you of our evening walks, in every cup of tea we shared in our kitchen at Kensington Palace, in George's sense of humor, Charlotte's determination, and Louis's infectious laugh." They held each other then, 2 people who had found in each other not just love, but a true partnership. They had weathered public scrutiny, personal challenges, and the enormous pressures of royal life. They had built a family, supported each other's dreams, and created a love story that had captivated millions around the world. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Dr. Patterson was waiting, and they both knew they couldn't postpone the inevitable any longer. "Ready?" William asked, though he felt anything but ready. Kate straightened her shoulders, summoning the poise and grace that had made her beloved by people across the globe. "Ready," she said, as they prepared to face whatever news awaited them. Neither could have imagined that their final embrace would soon become a moment that would stop the world and remind everyone who witnessed it of the profound power of true love. Dr. Patterson's office felt smaller than usual as William and Kate settled into the familiar chairs across from his desk. The oncologist had been their anchor through this storm, always honest but compassionate, never giving false hope but never taking it away completely either. Today, however, his usual professional composure seemed strained. "I wish I had better news for you both," Dr. Patterson began, his hands folded carefully on the desk. "The latest scans show that the cancer has progressed significantly despite our most aggressive treatments. The tumors have not responded as we hoped they would." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. William felt the world shift beneath him, as if the very foundations of reality had cracked. Beside him, Kate remained perfectly still, her training in public composure serving her even in this most private moment. "How long?" Kate asked simply, her voice steady in a way that broke William's heart. "It's difficult to say with certainty," Dr. Patterson replied carefully. "Weeks, perhaps a month or two. I'm so very sorry." William reached for Kate's hand, intertwining their fingers. He wanted to rage against the unfairness of it all, to demand second opinions and experimental treatments and miracles. But he could see in Kate's eyes that she had already accepted what he was still struggling to comprehend. After the meeting, they walked slowly back to Kate's room. The hospital corridors seemed endless, filled with the sounds of life continuing its relentless march forward. Somewhere a baby was crying. Nurses chatted quietly about weekend plans. The ordinary world persisted, oblivious to the fact that William's universe had just collapsed. "I want to go home," Kate said once they were alone again. "Not to Kensington Palace or Windsor. Home to Anmer Hall. I want to see the gardens one more time, sleep in our own bed, make breakfast for the children." William nodded, unable to trust his voice. Anmer Hall had always been their sanctuary, the place where they could simply be William and Kate rather than the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. It was where they had raised their young family, where lazy Sunday mornings were spent in pajamas and wellies, where they had created their most precious memories. The arrangements were made swiftly and discreetly. A medical team would accompany them, but Kate had made it clear she wanted these final weeks to be about living, not dying. She wanted to read bedtime stories and help with homework and watch terrible movies with William, while eating takeaway curry straight from the containers. The drive to Norfolk was peaceful. Kate slept for most of the journey, her head resting on William's shoulder while countryside rolled past the windows. He memorized the weight of her against him, the way her hair smelled like the lavender soap she had always preferred, the soft sound of her breathing. When they arrived at Anmer Hall, the children were waiting on the front steps with King Charles. George, Charlotte, and Louis ran toward the car with typical childhood enthusiasm. Seemingly unaware that anything had changed, Kate mustered her strength and embraced each of them with fierce love. "Mummy, we made you a welcome home banner," Charlotte announced proudly, pointing to a colorful creation strung between two trees. And Louis helped even though he ate some of the glitter. "It's the most beautiful banner I've ever seen," Kate said, and William could hear that she truly meant it. That evening, after the children were in bed, William and Kate sat together in their favorite spot in the garden. The roses were in full bloom, their fragrance carried on the gentle breeze. Kate had always said this garden was where she felt most at peace, surrounded by the flowers she had planted and tended with her own hands. "I've been thinking about what comes next," Kate said quietly. "For you, for the children." "Kate, don't," William protested. "Let's just focus on now." "We have to talk about it," she insisted gently. "I need to know that you'll be okay, that you'll help the children remember me not as the sick woman at the end, but as the mother who loved them beyond measure." William's composure finally cracked. The tears he had been holding back for months came in great shuddering sobs. Kate held him as he wept, her own tears falling silently into his hair. "I don't know how to do this without you," he whispered. "Yes, you do," Kate said firmly. "You're the strongest man I know. You'll get up every morning because the children need you to. You'll carry on the work we started together because it matters. And eventually, when the sharp edges of grief have worn smooth, you'll remember how to laugh again." Over the following days, visitors came and went. Kate's family, longtime friends, palace staff who had become like family over the years. Each goodbye was carefully choreographed to feel like a normal visit, protecting the children from the weight of finality. Prince Harry flew in from California, setting aside years of family tension for this moment. He and William sat together in the garden one evening, not talking much but simply being brothers again, united in their love for Kate and their shared understanding of loss. "She's worried about you," Harry told William. "She made me promise to look after you, which is ridiculous because you've always been the one looking after everyone else." "I don't feel strong enough for this," William admitted. "Neither did I when Mum died," Harry replied. "But somehow we keep going. And you have something I didn't have then. You have Catherine's love to carry you through." The media had been kept at a respectful distance, but the world was watching. Updates were carefully released, speaking of the Princess of Wales spending time with her family and expressing gratitude for the outpouring of love and support from around the globe. What the public didn't see were the quiet moments that mattered most. Kate helping Louis with his reading, her patience infinite even when her energy was limited. The afternoon she spent teaching Charlotte how to braid friendship bracelets, passing on a skill her own mother had taught her decades earlier. The evening she and George worked on a puzzle together, talking about his dreams for the future and making him promise to always be kind. Each day brought new challenges as Kate's strength ebbed, but also unexpected gifts. A family of deer appeared in the garden one morning, as if nature itself was paying its respects. The weather remained unseasonably beautiful, allowing them to spend precious hours outdoors. The children, with their remarkable resilience, filled the house with laughter and normal childhood chaos. As Kate's time grew shorter, William found himself grateful for every mundane moment. The way she still insisted on making tea in the mornings, her critique of his terrible joke-telling, the sight of her reading in their favorite armchair with afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. The world outside continued its vigil, not knowing that inside Anmer Hall a love story was approaching its most poignant chapter. The third week at Anmer Hall brought a bittersweet rhythm to their days. Kate's energy came in waves now, good hours followed by difficult ones, but she was determined to make each moment count. William watched her with a mixture of admiration and heartbreak as she poured herself into creating final memories with their children. Morning had become their most precious time together. Kate would wake early before the children stirred, and she and William would sit together in the kitchen with their tea, watching the sun rise over the Norfolk countryside. These quiet conversations became their sanctuary, where they could speak freely about their fears, their hopes, and their overwhelming love for one another. "I've been writing letters," Kate told him one such morning, her voice soft but determined. "For the children's future birthdays, their graduations, their weddings. I want them to know what I would have said if I could have been there." William's hand tightened around his mug. The thought of birthdays and graduations without Kate felt impossible to imagine. "How many have you written?" "Dozens," she smiled sadly. "I may have gotten a bit carried away. There's even one for when George becomes king someday, though I hope that's many years in the future." The dining room table had become Kate's writing desk, scattered with beautiful stationery and her careful handwriting. She wrote for hours when her strength allowed, pouring her heart onto paper in neat flowing script. Sometimes William would find her crying over a letter, and he would simply sit beside her, offering the comfort of his presence. The children sensed that something had shifted, though they couldn't quite name what it was. George at 10 was old enough to understand that his mother was very sick, but still young enough to believe that love might be enough to heal her. Charlotte, always perceptive, had taken on the role of little helper, fetching pillows and making Kate drawings to brighten her day. 5-year-old Louis simply wanted to be close to his mother constantly, often curling up beside her when she rested. "Mummy, why do you keep hugging us so tight?" Charlotte asked one afternoon as Kate held her for what felt like an eternity. "Because you give the very best hugs in the whole world," Kate replied, which was true, even if it wasn't the complete truth. The family photographer arrived that week to capture what everyone knew would be their final family portraits. It was important to Kate that there be beautiful images for the children to treasure, not just memories of hospital visits and hushed conversations. She insisted on getting dressed up, choosing a flowing blue dress that brought out her eyes and disguised how much weight she had lost. The photo session was both joyful and heartbreaking. The children were delighted to pose with their parents, making silly faces and cracking jokes. Kate's laughter rang out across the garden as Louis attempted to stand on his head for one picture, and George told an elaborate story about the fictional adventures of the garden. Gnomes, one more of just Mummy and Daddy, the photographer suggested gently. William and Kate stood together beneath the old oak tree where they had shared their first kiss after moving to Anmer Hall. The photographer captured dozens of images, Kate looking up at William with infinite love, William's hand gently touching her cheek, both of them simply holding each other as if they could stop time through the sheer force of their connection. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, William found Kate sitting at her writing desk again. She was working on a different kind of letter this time, one addressed to him. "You don't have to read it now," she said when she noticed him watching. "It's for later when you need to remember how much I love you." William knelt beside her chair, studying her profile in the lamplight. "I'll never need a letter to remember that. It's written in every moment we've shared, every laugh, every tear. Every ordinary Tuesday morning when you made fun of my bedhead." Kate smiled, that same radiant expression that had illuminated his world for over a decade. "Still, humor me. Consider it insurance." The weekend brought an unexpected gift, a perfect English summer day with clear skies and gentle breezes. Kate declared it a mandatory family fun day, and they spent hours in the garden playing games and having a picnic on the lawn. William grilled hamburgers with questionable success while Kate supervised from her chair, offering commentary that made the children giggle. "Daddy's burning the food again," Louis observed with 5-year-old frankness. "That's not burning. That's well done," William protested, flipping a distinctly charcoal-colored burger. "It's perfect," Kate declared diplomatically, winking at the children. "Daddy's cooking has character." After lunch, they played cricket with makeshift equipment, a tennis ball, George's cricket bat, and flower pots for wickets. Kate managed to bowl a few rounds, her competitive spirit shining through even as her strength flagged. When she hit the ball particularly well, she performed a small victory dance that sent the children into fits of laughter. As the afternoon wound down, the family gathered on the garden swing that William had installed years earlier. It was barely big enough for all 5 of them, with Charlotte perched on Kate's lap and Louis squeezed between his parents. They swayed gently back and forth, watching clouds drift across the sky and making up stories about their shapes. "That one looks like a dragon," George pointed out. "No, it's obviously a teapot," Charlotte disagreed. "It's a dragon having tea," Kate suggested, settling the debate with typical maternal wisdom. William closed his eyes and tried to memorize everything about this moment. The weight of his family around him, the sound of Kate's voice as she spun elaborate tales about cloud creatures, the way the setting sun painted everything in golden light. He wanted to live in this moment forever, suspended between earth and sky with everyone he loved most in the world. That night, after they had tucked the children into their beds with extra hugs and stories, William and Kate sat together in their bedroom. Kate was growing more tired now, needing to rest frequently, but she was still determinedly herself, quick-witted, loving, endlessly graceful. "Promise me something," she said, taking his hands in hers. "Anything," William replied without hesitation. "Promise me that you'll let yourself be happy again someday. Not right away and not the same kind of happiness we've shared. But promise me that you won't spend the rest of your life just going through the motions." William wanted to protest, to say that happiness without her was impossible to imagine, but he could see the earnestness in her eyes, the way this promise mattered to her. "I promise," he said, and he meant it, even though he had no idea how he would ever keep such a promise. Outside their window, the Norfolk night was peaceful and still. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now they had this quiet moment together, and somehow it was enough. The 4th week brought a noticeable change in Kate's condition. She slept more during the day and moved more slowly when she was awake, but her spirit remained undimmed. If anything, she seemed more determined than ever to squeeze every drop of meaning from the time they had left. William had arranged for a hospital bed to be set up in their bedroom, though Kate insisted on spending as much time as possible in their regular bed. "I want to fall asleep next to my husband, not next to medical equipment," she said firmly, and William couldn't argue with that logic. The medical team had established a discreet presence in the house, monitoring Kate's condition while respecting the family's need for privacy. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the palliative care specialist, had become particularly close to them all. She had a gift for providing comfort without being intrusive, and even the children had grown fond of her gentle manner. "How are you doing with all of this?" Dr. Mitchell asked William one morning as they walked together in the garden. "I honestly don't know," William admitted. "Some moments I feel like I'm coping well, and then something small will happen. Kate will laugh at something silly, or I'll catch her looking at the children with such love, and it hits me all over again that she won't be here much longer." "That's completely normal," Dr. Mitchell assured him. "Grief isn't linear, especially when you're grieving someone who's still with you. You're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling." Inside the house, Kate was having her own conversation with her mother, Carol, who had been staying with them for the past week. The two women sat together in the sitting room, surrounded by photo albums and memory boxes that Kate was organizing for the children. "I keep thinking about when she was little," Carol said, her voice thick with tears as she looked at a picture of 3-year-old Charlotte. "How she used to insist on wearing her princess dress to the grocery store. She was so confident, so sure of herself." "She still is," Kate smiled. "Yesterday she informed me that when she grows up, she's going to be a veterinarian princess who rescues animals and wears a crown while doing surgery." I told her that sounded like an excellent plan. They worked together to create special memory boxes for each child. Collections of photos, small treasures, and handwritten notes from Kate about their favorite memories together. For George, there were pictures from their countless football matches in the garden, and a letter about how proud she was of his kindness and leadership. Charlotte's box contained photos from their baking adventures and a note about her daughter's fierce determination and loving heart. Lewis's collection featured images from their daily reading sessions and Kate's words about his infectious joy and curiosity about the world. "They're so lucky to have had you as their mother," Carol said, watching Kate carefully arrange the items. "I'm the lucky one," Kate replied. "I got to be their mother. Even if it's not for as long as I wanted, I got to love them and be loved by them. That's more than many people ever get." The children, meanwhile, had adapted to their mother's illness with the remarkable resilience of youth. They had been told that Mummy was very sick and might not get better, but they approached each day with their usual energy and enthusiasm. George had taken on more responsibility, helping his younger siblings without being asked. Charlotte had become even more affectionate, constantly bringing Kate small gifts, wildflowers picked from the garden, drawings made with careful attention to detail, or simply her favorite stuffed animal to keep Kate company during rest times. Louis, in the way of 5-year-olds, had the most direct questions. "If Mummy goes to heaven, can she still hear us when we talk to her?" he asked William one afternoon as they built an elaborate Lego castle together. "I think she can," William answered carefully. "What do you think?" "I think heaven has really good hearing," Louis decided. "Like superpowered ears. So Mummy will hear everything, even when we whisper." That evening, the family gathered for what had become their nightly tradition, story time in the master bedroom. Kate propped herself up against pillows while the children arranged themselves around her on the bed. William sat in the chair nearby, occasionally jumping in to do character voices that made everyone laugh. Tonight, Kate was reading The Lion, The Witch and the Wardrobe, and they had reached the part where Aslan sacrifices himself to save Edmund. The children were completely absorbed in the story, but William found himself struggling with the parallels. The idea of noble sacrifice and love conquering death felt too close to their own reality. "Why did Aslan have to die?" Charlotte asked, her eyes wide with concern. "Because sometimes the people we love most make the hardest choices to protect us," Kate explained gently. "And love is stronger than anything else, even death. Aslan's love didn't die when he did. It lived on in everyone who knew him." After the children were settled in their own beds, William returned to find Kate sitting by the window, looking out at the star-filled sky. The summer evening was warm and peaceful, filled with the sounds of night-blooming flowers and distant owls. "Do you remember our first night here?" Kate asked as William joined her. "We were so excited to finally have a place that was just ours. away from all the protocol and formality. You spent an hour trying to figure out how to work the television remote. William laughed at the memory. And you insisted on christening every room by dancing in it even though we didn't have any furniture yet. We danced in the kitchen to music from your phone, Kate recalled. You said it was the most romantic ballroom you'd ever been in. I meant it, William said. Every dance with you has been perfect, furniture or no furniture. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, each lost in their own memories of the life they had built together. The house around them held so many stories, birthday parties and quiet dinners, Christmas mornings and ordinary Tuesdays, fights and reconciliations and all the small moments that make up a shared life. I want you to know, Kate said eventually, that I've never regretted a single moment of our life together. Not the public scrutiny, not the protocol, not the sacrifices we've had to make. It's all been worth it because I got to love you and build this family with you. William brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, he said. The best thing that ever happened to the children, to the monarchy, to everyone whose life you've touched. We've been happy, haven't we? Kate asked, and William could hear the contentment in her voice despite everything. Incredibly happy, he confirmed. The happiest people in the world. As they prepared for bed, William helped Kate with the small tasks that had become difficult for her. Brushing her hair, helping her change into comfortable pajamas, arranging her pillows just right. These intimate moments of care had become precious to him, a way of showing his love when words felt inadequate. Will you tell me about tomorrow? Kate asked as they settled into bed together. Tomorrow we're going to have breakfast on the terrace, Mighty William said, pulling her close. George wants to show you the bird's nest he found in the hedge. Charlotte has a new dance she's been practicing, and Louis wants to help you water the flowers, though knowing him you'll both end up soaked. Kate smiled against his chest. It sounds perfect. Every day with you is perfect, William whispered into her hair. Outside, the Norfolk countryside slept peacefully under a blanket of stars, holding them all in its gentle embrace as they faced whatever tomorrow might bring. The morning of what would become known as Kate's last good day began like any other. She woke before dawn, as had become her habit, and found William already awake beside her, watching her with those blue eyes that had captivated her since their university days. Good morning. Beautiful, he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Flatterer, she replied with a weak smile. Though they both knew she was far from the radiant woman she had once been, the illness had taken its toll on her physical appearance, but to William, she had never been more beautiful. Her inner light seemed to shine brighter with each passing day, as if her spirit was preparing to illuminate a different kind of existence. They lay together in the early morning quiet, listening to the sounds of the house awakening around them. Somewhere down the hall, Louis was talking to his stuffed animals in the serious voice he used when playing grown-up. Charlotte's alarm clock played its gentle melody, followed by the thud of small feet hitting the floor. George moved more quietly, but they could hear his door opening as he headed to the bathroom. They're getting so independent, Kate observed with mixed pride and sadness. George made his own breakfast yesterday. Charlotte picked out her own clothes even though they didn't quite match. And Louis is reading simple sentences now. You taught them well, William said. They'll be fine. I know they will, Kate agreed. They have you. And they have each other. And they have all the love we've poured into them. After breakfast, which Kate managed to eat most of despite her diminishing appetite, the family ventured into the garden. It was one of those perfect English summer days that seemed designed for memory-making. Warm, but not hot, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of roses and honeysuckle. Kate insisted on walking to her favorite spot, a bench beneath the apple tree that she and William had planted during their first year at Anmer Hall. The tree had grown substantially since then, its branches now providing a canopy of green leaves and developing fruit. Remember when we planted this? Kate asked, settling onto the bench with William's careful assistance. You were convinced we were doing it wrong because I hadn't read the instructions first. You never read instructions for anything, William laughed. You just dove in with complete confidence that everything would work out. And it usually did, Kate pointed out. Except for that time I tried to assemble Charlotte's dollhouse without looking at the directions. That was a disaster. The children had spread a blanket nearby and were engaged in an elaborate game involving their toy soldiers, several stuffed animals, and what appeared to be a diplomatic summit between the kingdom. of the garden gnomes and the Republic of Teddy Bears. Their serious negotiations and dramatic plot twists provided a soundtrack of innocent joy to the morning. "Mummy, can you be the voice of Princess Rabbit?" Charlotte called over. She needs to make an important speech about peace treaties. Kate accepted the well-worn stuffed rabbit with ceremonial gravity. "Princess Rabbit is honored to address this distinguished assembly," she began in a slightly higher voice, causing all three children to collapse in giggles. For the next hour, Kate threw herself into the game with the enthusiasm that had always made her such a beloved mother. She voiced various characters, suggested plot developments, and even helped negotiate a complex trade agreement between the gnomes and bears involving imaginary carrots and honey. William watched from the bench, memorizing every detail, the way Kate's eyes lit up when she made the children laugh, the patient attention she gave to their elaborate storylines, the gentle way she guided their play without taking it over. This was Kate at her most essential, completely present, endlessly loving, finding joy in the simple act of being with their children. As the morning progressed into afternoon, Kate's energy began to flag, but she was determined to make the most of every moment. She supervised a tea party on the lawn, complete with the children's toy china and carefully constructed cucumber sandwiches that were more bread than cucumber. She listened to George read aloud from his favorite adventure book, offering appropriate gasps and cheers at the exciting parts. "You're the best audience ever, Mummy," George told her seriously. "You always react at exactly the right moments." "That's because you're an excellent storyteller," Kate replied. "You make me feel like I'm right there on the pirate ship with the characters during Charlotte's impromptu ballet performance, a dramatic interpretation of the story of Cinderella." Kate provided running commentary and enthusiastic applause. Charlotte had been taking dance lessons and was eager to show off her newfound skills, leaping and spinning across the grass with 6-year-old grace. "Brava," Kate called out as Charlotte finished with a wobbly but determined pirouette. The Royal Opera House should see this performance. Even Louis got his moment to shine, demonstrating his ability to hop on one foot for an impressively long time while reciting the alphabet. Kate cheered him on with such genuine enthusiasm that he attempted an encore performance, this time trying to hop while spelling his name. As the afternoon sun began to slant lower in the sky, Kate suggested one final activity, a walk through the gardens to pick flowers for the dinner table. It was a tradition they had started years earlier, and Kate was determined to maintain it for as long as possible. The walk was slow, with Kate leaning heavily on William's arm, but she insisted on examining every flower bed and praising the children's choices. George selected sturdy daisies with scientific precision, explaining his selection criteria to anyone who would listen. Charlotte gathered an armload of colorful blooms with more enthusiasm than coordination, creating a bouquet that was charmingly chaotic. Louis focused on dandelions, convinced they were the most beautiful flowers in the garden. "Every flower has its own special beauty," Kate told him as he proudly presented his contribution. "Dandelions are brave flowers. They grow everywhere and make people smile." Back in the house, they arranged their collected blooms in various vases and jam jars, creating centerpieces for every room. Kate supervised from a chair, offering suggestions and praise as the children worked with serious concentration. "This one should go by the window," Charlotte decided, holding up a mason jar filled with wildflowers. "The sunlight will make the colors even prettier." "Perfect choice," Kate agreed, though her voice was growing softer with fatigue. That evening, after a simple dinner where Kate managed only a few bites but delighted in watching her family enjoy the meal, they gathered once more for story time. Tonight felt different somehow, more precious and fragile, as if they all sensed that something was shifting. Kate had chosen the Velveteen Rabbit for their bedtime story, perhaps because its themes of love and transformation resonated with her in ways the children couldn't yet understand. As she read about the toy rabbit who became real through being loved, her voice carried a depth of emotion that made William's throat tighten. "What's real?" asked the rabbit one day, Kate read softly. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." The children listened with rapt attention, though Louis was fighting sleep, his head drooping against Kate's shoulder. Charlotte was wide awake, hanging on every word, while George followed along in his own copy of the book. "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." Kate's voice caught slightly on those words, and William saw her blink back tears. She continued reading, but he could see the effort it was taking. "By the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." When the story ended and the children had been tucked into their beds with extra hugs and whispered, "I love yous," William found Kate sitting in their bedroom, staring out at the darkening sky. "That was a beautiful choice for tonight," he said, settling beside her. "I wanted them to understand," Kate said quietly, "that love makes everything real and meaningful. Even when things change or when people have to go away, that being loved completely is what makes us who we truly are." They prepared for bed with the careful tenderness that had become their routine. William helped Kate into her favorite pajamas, soft blue cotton covered with tiny stars that matched her eyes. He brushed her hair with gentle strokes, savoring the simple intimacy of caring for her. As they settled into bed together, Kate turned to face William one last time with the energy and clarity that sometimes comes to people near the end of their journey. "Thank you," she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears, "for making me real, for loving me so completely that I became the best version of myself, for giving me a life more beautiful than any fairy tale." "Thank you," William replied, his voice breaking, "for being my greatest love, my truest friend, my perfect partner in everything that mattered." They held each other in the darkness, two people who had found in each other not just love but completion. Outside, the Norfolk night was peaceful and still, holding them in its gentle embrace as they faced the approaching dawn of what they both somehow knew would be their final day together. Kate fell asleep first, her breathing soft and even against William's chest. He lay awake for a long time, memorizing the weight of her in his arms, the sound of her heartbeat, the way she still reached for him even in sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they had this perfect moment of peace together. As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, William finally allowed himself to sleep, holding his beloved wife close and dreaming of all the tomorrows they had shared and all the love that would outlast even time itself. The morning came too soon, and not soon enough. William woke to find Kate already awake beside him, though she hadn't moved from his arms. Her breathing was more labored now, each breath requiring conscious effort, but her eyes were alert and focused on his face. "Good morning, my love," she whispered, her voice barely audible but still carrying all the warmth that had sustained him through 13 years of marriage. "Good morning, beautiful," he replied. Though they both knew this morning was anything but good, it was necessary, inevitable but certainly not good. Dr. Mitchell arrived early, as had become her custom, bringing with her the quiet competence that had made this impossible situation slightly more bearable. After a brief examination, she spoke quietly with William in the hallway. "It won't be much longer," she said gently. "Her body is shutting down, but she's not in pain. The medication is keeping her comfortable." "How long?" William asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Hours, perhaps less. You should gather the children." William nodded, unable to trust his voice. He had known this moment was coming, had tried to prepare himself for it, but nothing could have truly readied him for the reality of facing his children with this news. He found them in the kitchen, eating breakfast with their grandmother, Carol. The scene was so beautifully normal, George reading the back of the cereal box aloud, Charlotte humming while she ate her toast, Louis trying to balance his spoon on his nose, that William almost couldn't bear to shatter their innocence. "I need to talk to you all about Mummy," he said, settling into the chair across from them. The children's expressions grew serious, their childish intuition telling them that something significant was about to change. "Mummy is very, very sick," William began carefully, "and the doctors think that today might be the day she goes to heaven." The silence that followed was profound. George was the first to speak, his 10-year-old mind trying to process the unprocessable. "You mean she's going to die today?" he asked, his voice steady but his eyes filling with tears. "We think so." "Yes," William confirmed, his own voice breaking slightly. Charlotte burst into tears immediately, The kind of heartbroken sobbing that only a child can produce. "But I don't want her to go," she wailed. "I want her to stay with us." Louis, at 5, didn't fully understand the permanence of what was happening, but he understood that his sister was crying and that something was very wrong. "Is Mummy hurt?" he asked, looking confused and frightened. William gathered all 3 children into his arms, holding them as they cried and asked questions he didn't know how to answer. How do you explain to a child that life isn't fair? That sometimes the people we love most have to leave us? That love continues even when the person we love is gone? Can we see her? George asked eventually, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Of course," William said. "She's been waiting for you. She wants to tell you how much she loves you." The walk to the master bedroom felt like a funeral procession. The children moved slowly, holding hands and sticking close to their father. When they entered the room, Kate was propped up against pillows, still looking out the window at her beloved garden. "There are my beautiful babies," she said, her face lighting up despite her obvious exhaustion. "Come here and give Mummy cuddles." The children climbed carefully onto the bed, arranging themselves around Kate just as they had for countless story times and lazy weekend mornings. But this time was different. This time they all knew it was goodbye. "I want you to know," Kate began, speaking slowly but clearly, "that being your mummy has been the greatest joy of my entire life. You 3 are the most wonderful, kind, brilliant children any mother could ask for." She spoke to each child individually then, telling George how proud she was of his kindness and intelligence, reminding Charlotte of her strength and creativity, praising Louis for his curiosity and joy. She made them promise to take care of each other and to always remember how much she loved them. "Will you still be able to see us from heaven?" Charlotte asked, her small hand clutching Kate's. "I'll always be watching over you," Kate promised. "When you see a beautiful sunset or smell flowers in the garden or hear your favorite song, that's me sending you a hug from heaven." "What if we forget what you look like?" Louis asked with 5-year-old pragmatism. "Daddy has lots of pictures," Kate assured him. "And you won't forget, sweetie. Love has the best memory of all." The children stayed with Kate for over an hour, talking about everything and nothing, sharing memories and making final promises. When they finally left to spend time with their grandmother, each child had said their own version of goodbye, though none of them actually used that word. As the afternoon wore on, Kate's breathing became more labored and her periods of wakefulness grew shorter. The family took turns sitting with her, sometimes all together, sometimes one at a time. Friends and family members came to pay their respects, understanding that they were witnessing the end of an era. Prince Charles arrived in the early afternoon, his usually composed demeanor cracking as he saw his daughter-in-law fighting her final battle. "You've been the daughter I never had," he told her during a quiet moment when she was alert enough to hear him. "Thank you for loving my son so completely and for giving us those 3 incredible grandchildren." Harry had flown in again, this time bringing Meghan and their children. The brothers sat together beside Kate's bed, old grievances forgotten in the face of impending loss. Meghan held Kate's hand and spoke quietly about the children's activities, keeping her voice light and normal. As evening approached, William sensed that Kate was waiting for something. She had been drifting in and out of consciousness, but whenever he spoke to her, she would open her eyes and focus on his face with remarkable clarity. "What do you need, my love?" he asked during one of her wakeful moments. "Just you," she whispered. "I want it to be just us at the end." William understood. After saying goodbye to the children one final time, though they didn't realize it was final, he asked everyone to give them privacy. The room fell quiet except for the soft sounds of Kate's breathing and the distant murmur of family gathered in other parts of the house. William climbed into bed beside Kate, pulling her gently into his arms. She felt so fragile now, like she might disappear entirely if he held her too tightly. But she was still Kate, still the woman who had transformed his life with her love. "Do you remember our wedding day?" Kate asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Every detail," William replied. "You walked down that aisle like you were floating. I forgot to breathe for about 30 seconds. I was so nervous I almost tripped on my dress," Kate admitted with a tiny smile. "But then I saw you waiting for me and everything else just disappeared." "You were the most beautiful bride in the world," William said. "You still are the most beautiful woman in the world." They lay together in the gathering dusk, surrounded by the memories of a life fully lived and a love deeply shared. Kate's breathing grew shallower, the pauses between breaths growing longer, but she remained peaceful, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I love you," she whispered one final time. Her eyes locked on William's face. "I love you too," he replied, "forever and always." As the sun set over the Norfolk countryside, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that Kate had always loved, she took her final breath in the arms of the man who had been her greatest love, her truest friend and her perfect partner in the beautiful dance of their shared life. William held Kate for a long time after she was gone, unwilling to break the spell of their final embrace. The room was peaceful, bathed in the soft light of early evening, and for these precious moments, he could pretend that she was simply sleeping in his arms as she had thousands of times before. Dr. Mitchell entered quietly, her experienced eyes immediately understanding what had happened. She approached the bed with gentle reverence, checking for vital signs that were no longer there, then stepped back to give William more time with his wife. "She looks peaceful," Dr. Mitchell observed softly, and William nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Eventually, William knew he had to face the impossible task of telling his children that their mother was gone. He kissed Kate's forehead one last time, whispering words of love that only she would ever hear, then slowly made his way to the sitting room where his family waited. The children were with Carol, playing a quiet game of cards, but their eyes immediately went to their father's face when he entered. Even 5-year-old Louis could read the devastation written there. "Is Mummy in heaven now?" Charlotte asked, her voice small and scared. William knelt down and gathered all 3 children into his arms. "Yes, sweetheart. Mummy went to heaven very peacefully and she's not sick anymore." The grief that followed was profound and immediate. George tried to be strong as the eldest, but his composure cracked and he sobbed against his father's shoulder. Charlotte's wails of sorrow echoed through the house, a sound that would haunt William's dreams for months to come. Louis cried because everyone else was crying, not fully understanding that he would never see his mother again, but sensing that something irreplaceable had been lost. They cried together until there were no more tears, and then they held each other in the growing darkness. A family forever changed, but still bound together by the love Kate had given them all. The next few days passed in a blur of arrangements and obligations. The palace machinery swung into action, managing the flood of condolences from around the world and preparing for what would undoubtedly be one of the most watched funerals in history. But William insisted that Kate's final journey begin at Anmer Hall. Surrounded by the family and friends who had known her not as the Princess of Wales, but simply as Kate. They held a private service in the village church where the family had worshipped for years. The children each chose something special to place with their mother. George selected a photo from their last family portrait. Charlotte offered a friendship bracelet she had made, and Louis contributed a carefully chosen dandelion, because Kate had said they were brave flowers that made people smile. Prince Charles spoke about Kate's grace and dignity, how she had modernized the monarchy while respecting its traditions. Harry shared memories of her laughter and her terrible jokes that somehow always made everyone feel better. But it was William's eulogy that brought tears to every eye in the small church. "Kate wasn't just my wife," he said, his voice steady, despite his broken heart. "She was my anchor, my compass, my home. She taught me that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day to put someone else's happiness alongside your own. She chose to love me, to love our children, to love all of you, every single day of her life." He spoke about her devotion to their children, her commitment to her charitable work, her ability to find joy in simple moments. She would want us to remember not how she died, but how she lived, fully, generously, with absolute faith in the power of love to heal and transform. The state funeral at Westminster Abbey was a magnificent tribute to a woman who had touched millions of lives. World leaders and ordinary citizens alike had come to pay their respects. The children walked behind their mother's coffin with remarkable composure, their small hands clasped tightly in their father's. But it was a moment outside the Abbey that truly captured the world's attention and became the image that would define Kate's legacy. As the coffin was being loaded into the hearse for its journey to Windsor, William suddenly broke away from the formal procession. In full view of the cameras and the crowds, he placed both hands on the side of the hearse and leaned his forehead against the glass, his body language conveying a grief so profound that it seemed to encompass all human loss. The photograph of that moment, William's final, desperate embrace of the woman he loved, appeared on front pages around the world. It was titled Love's Last Goodbye and the Embrace That Stopped the World. In that single image, viewers saw not a future king fulfilling his duty, but a man saying farewell to his heart. The months that followed were the hardest of William's life. The children struggled with their grief in different ways. George threw himself into his studies, Charlotte became clingy and tearful, and Louis asked daily when Mummy was coming home from heaven. William attended grief counseling with them, learned to navigate bedtime stories without Kate's gentle presence, and discovered strengths he never knew he possessed. Slowly, carefully, they began to build a new version of their family. William kept Kate's traditions alive. The flowers on the dinner table, the bedtime stories, the Sunday morning pancakes that he burned almost as spectacularly as Kate had predicted. The children found comfort in routine and in talking about their mother openly and often. A year later, on the anniversary of Kate's death, they returned to Anmer Hall. The gardens had been maintained exactly as Kate had left them, and the apple tree they had planted together was heavy with fruit. The children picked apples while William sat on Kate's favorite bench, feeling her presence in the warm September sunshine. "Do you think Mummy can see us?" Charlotte asked, settling beside her father with an armload of apples. "I know she can," William replied with certainty, "and I think she's proud of how brave and strong you've all been." "I miss her every day," George admitted, joining them on the bench. "So do I," William said. "But you know what? I think that's okay. Missing her means we love her, and love never goes away, even when people do." Louis appeared with his cheeks bulging with apple, having clearly been sampling the harvest. "Daddy, when I die, will I see Mummy again?" "Someday when you're very, very old," William assured him. "But not for a long, long time. Mummy wants you to live a full, happy life first." As the sun set over the Norfolk countryside, painting the sky in the same shades of pink and gold that had marked Kate's final evening, William felt something he hadn't experienced in months, a sense of peace. The grief would always be there, but so would the love. Kate had given them enough love to last several lifetimes, and that love would carry them forward into whatever came next. That night, as he tucked the children into their beds, each of them mentioned something they wanted to tell Mummy. William added his own silent message to the evening sky. "Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for our beautiful children. Thank you for every moment we shared. I'll love you forever." And somewhere in the starlight above Anmer Hall, in the gentle breeze through the apple trees, in the love that bound their family together across the veil between life and death, Kate's presence lingered on, eternal, unbreakable, and infinitely tender. The world had watched their love story unfold, and it would remember forever the final embrace that said everything words never could. That true love transcends even death, and some bonds are too strong for anything to break.